Hi, do you hear me?
Hello.
Hi. Yeah,
Hey,
sorry about.
my speakers are not working.
Okay.
Let me
And,
fix my speakers.
and I'm trying to find position where I'm not overexposed with the light. Yeah. Maybe another half of the room. Yeah, it's a little better. Yeah, so we wait for others to join.
Oh,
Yeah.
hello. Now
Yeah.
I can hear you. I was fixing my speakers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
How are you?
Yeah, good. Actually, like confused. Probably when we discuss, we suggest to have the same time as main working group. So I
Yeah.
remember it like that. And yeah, probably we made the first or the second at the same time that that we had,
Yeah, that's
you know,
probably better.
daylight saving and stuff. Yeah, so it's like 5 p.m. UTC right now, right? Because I
Yes, I
set
think.
everybody hit time.
Yeah, we should change it to 5 p.m. on the next meetings then.
Yeah, yeah, because like I think we all synchronize more or less by main working group meeting because it's kind of a time that fit everybody more or less. And plus it remove possibility of like somebody like me confusing the time. Yeah, by the way, I like want to hear your like everybody's opinion, but it's only you right now on the call about actually. Today I wrote a release plan, step-by-step release plan.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, pin issue. Yeah, and I will pin it because it's like more updated in the sense. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
switch to master to main is yeah,
Yeah.
I get
Yeah, we need to do it
everyone's
at
doing
some
it.
point.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I was
There is
kind
no.
of annoyed. Like changed on like 10 repos, had to go in each and every repo, had to update each and every like workflow to it's very painful.
Yeah, and it's also close PRs. So if you remove a branch, you
Yeah.
automatically close all PRs against it.
Yep.
So yeah, so somebody with admin rights should. We cannot remove master
Yeah.
until we switch every PR to main.
Yep.
So maybe GitHub actually creates some tools for it.
They should
Like,
make something like all the master, like if you rename master to main or something, it automatically rebases it or something.
yeah.
Because on big projects, it's like very difficult to make the change.
Right now I'm so paranoid that I will check here 5 p.m. UTC. So I send everybody a time. Oh, like 2 pairs. Closed. This one is closed. Yeah, I also think we need to run prettier on nodes, not on nodes, on agendas, because it looks like Gago tried to edit it, some editor, and
Yeah.
have to make bunch of change automatically.
Oh.
So I think like it will help everybody if you we'll have prettier friendly, like default prettier config friendly markdown files.
Okay. We can open an issue to add it in.
Yes. Yeah, if somebody want to work on it.
I can add a word.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, we are saying GraphQL JS SW working group. That's what you're saying?
Sorry, can you repeat? I need a second.
I was saying, sorry, I was listening and I didn't say anything. I was saying that you were talking about adding the ESLint prettier to the working group document?
No, not ESLint, or just prettier.
Okay.
Just run it on all, because as I thought, like you try to edit it inside some editor with automatic prettier, and what's up bunch of unrelated change, and yeah, like we want to make it low barrier to entry. You should not like use like suggestions and stuff. By the way, if you do that, please check like main GraphQL working group repo, because we copied file from them, so it's mean like it makes sense to convert it like everywhere and not to spread like different version of basically the same templates.
I see.
Yeah, so like think running prettier on.
Yeah, there's no setup in the. I'm checking GraphQL.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Yeah. So yeah, open to anything. And also like CI. I don't know if it's worth to add CI step, but like at least convert current templates to. I think most important is like future events and templates. And I want to add like yeah, and we'll wait for Uri for a couple of minutes, and I will add myself to agenda. Yeah, and also Uri need to run somewhere, so we discuss, and he want to discuss like TypeScript conversion. So I will put it as a first agenda item before like REST.
Okay. You should add your name to last meeting too.
Oh, thanks. Release plan. version. Yeah. Yeah. So 1 second, I will add myself. Yeah, I think we can start, and I will just ping Uri. Hi Uri. I just was.
Sorry, I'll be in the background because I really can't. I have to cook.
Oh,
sorry.
okay. Yeah, no problem. It's actually, yeah, sorry to everybody. I just confused times, so that's why it's yeah. I think we need to create calendar to not calendar event to not recurrent calendar event to not have it in the future to save me from and everybody else from the same situation. So yeah, I will add agenda. One thing I don't know if yeah, so I will send it one more time. I just finished the release plan for 1600, so we can discuss it. And if you want, you can quickly look at it, and I will open agenda and we'll start by agenda. Here, linked agenda. So our first items, yeah, we're recording, and GraphQL Foundation asks everybody to sign membership agreement. So if you want to participate in this call, so you need to sign code of conduct, participation guidelines, everything is agenda. You can sign it as a person or as an organization, but it's simpler to just sign it as individual contributor. By the way, quick note, I think Brian from GraphQL Foundation, he is introducing automatic CLA check. So at some point, we would stop merging PRs without CLA signed, because we need to do that for legal reason. So I encourage you to sign it anyway to save you from figure it out later. Yeah. So second point, introduction of attendees. So if you open agenda, there is a list of attendees, and we will use the same order as in the list. So we'll start from Uri. So Uri probably cooking. So Sahid.
Sahaj.
Yeah. Sahed, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi everyone. I am Sahaj, and I am working on TypeScript migration of GraphQL JS.
And Gago, use the next.
Yeah, everyone. I'm working on SW API GraphQL and data loader right now.
Yeah, and myself, hi, my name is Ivan, and I'm on this call, I'm representing Graphql Foundation. And I maintained, hope to maintain some repos in Graphql JS, Express GraphQL mainly with two, yeah, Express GraphQL and GraphQL JS, and hope with some others. So hopefully in future we will have more and more active participants on this call. So after that, review previous meeting action items. So I didn't finish bunch of them, so I don't know if I should do it. Yeah, I probably should share my screen. If I figure out how to do that, share screen, desktop one, share, and you should see my screen. So everything, I think I focus like on clean closing one, mainly detailed plan for yeah, this one. So I send it to you and we'll discuss it today. And if somebody have somebody like want to discuss it, I add it to agenda items. So I will close this one and add a link to issue. Yeah. So yeah, I didn't finish like bunch of others, and I still need to work on it. Yeah, but at least like when we agree on test migration plan, it will unblock me partly because yeah, we can work in parallel. So I will focus on probably writing contribution guide as the next item. Yes, so back to agenda. So we need to review agenda item. And so for today agenda, we have, yeah, we'll have review 1600 release plan. And there is another issue I want to discuss, short one. And when we can switch to two other items. So let's start from the release plan. And I will share my screen in case we want to edit it or to change something. But you're free to comment. I will just like quickly go through it for us to synchronize. So like goals of 16. So it's not only test migration plan. On previous meeting, we all agreed that it makes sense to do test conversion as a breaking change, as a new release, because it will make conversion more flexible and it will probably break something anyway. So yeah, so in scope of the 1600 release, convert everything to TypeScript. Not everything, mainly I think, I mean like source code. We can still have some like scripts in JS and some additional code in JavaScript where it makes sense. But main source code should be like 100% TypeScript. Yeah, in the process, we want to clean up our code base because there is like some for specific workarounds if we will inevitably add some TypeScript specific workarounds. So so like it's better to clean up old stuff before like adding new stuff. One of the crucial point about GraphQL Js is reference implementation, and as such it should be like readable. So it should contain the smallest possible amount of JavaScript specific workarounds and JavaScript specific stuff. But at the same time, it should be like usable and provide a good developer experience for JavaScript. So JavaScript like users. That's why we will add like some TypeScript specific things or workarounds, but we should try to minimize it. So if something is not hurting developer experience, we should remove it. Support Dino, because people start asking about that, and one of the biggest roadblock for that is like having TypeScript. They like Dino support DTS files, but it's not native in this ecosystem. And I think it's make like the entire process of testing Dino and using our library harder. At the same time, it's critical because we don't want to split community. Some people already converted our library to Dino, at least like attempted to do so. Either they convert to like npm package, or they converted like on the repo, fork a repo. So like sometimes forks make sense, but if we can incorporate new platform, why not? So in addition to Node and browser, we will support Dino, support ESM because the same people asking for that. And finally, Node.js is finalized on ESM design. So previously we partly support ESM through MJS files, but it's incomplete. And we need to figure out how to support ESM at some level, especially since we're like peer dependency. So we need to support ESM as peer dependency. That also makes sense to do the breaking change. And switch master to main.
Yeah, my headphones disconnected. Do you hear me, right? Yes. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, super. Yeah. So yeah, switch main to master because we need to do it anyway, and because right now it's feature freeze, so it makes sense if we block like PRs. I think it's the safest time to do that switch. And if and plus like usual planned stuff that we planned anyway for this release. So do you want to sorry about that. Yeah, I think I finally figured out setup. Yeah. So do you want to add anything into your goals, or think something is important and cannot be done as 16.10 as a next feature, non-breaking feature release? And also know that we will need to do next breaking release anyway on next year, in the middle of next year, because we need to drop Node version 10. Previously, we tried to support old Node versions after LTC ended, but it's hard because everybody dropping. So we kind of also need to stay in sync with our other libraries, or we would have problem of updating dependencies. So based on current goal and the fact that we will release next one in less than a year, anything else critical that you want to suggest or have I want to discuss for goals section? No. So idea is to keep it minimal because in a sense it's not planned breaking release. We didn't plan to do it, but because of TS conversion, we need to do it. So that's why I always change. And somebody, just to check if like my setup is working, can somebody say something?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Because, oh, okay, so yeah, it's always hard to do one monologues. So if you want to ask something or suggest something, so planned breaking change is to drop legacy SDL syntax because it was deprecated for more than 2 years, and it makes sense to drop it instead of converting it. And some other, so legacy SDL syntax is the biggest deprecated stuff that we currently have. We have some other like minor deprecated stuff that will, most of them like quite easy to migrate. So like second, it's also kind of big to drop native Internet Explorer support because it's my contribution process harder and reviewing process harder. I constantly need to review PRs and see if people using ES6 something that is not supported in Internet Explorer, and we have like handwritten polyfills. That is also not ideal situation. So plus it's like using your own polyfills with TypeScript, but like we don't change prototype, it's just a function with different names. So it's hard to create typing for them, hard to maintain typing for them, and that cause a bunch of problems. So first thing is we remove polyfills, and you can always substitute it with Core.js. And second thing, switch output to ES6. It's mainly to optimize performance, because right now we have one build for browser and for Node.js, and it's ES5 build. That means it's hard to debug because you looking at ES5 code generated from ES6, and also like performance wise, we had like inject bunch of third-party code. But at the same time, if somebody wants to use Core.js and Bubble on our source code, we should support this. We should support that use case for some time. So it's mean like we cannot use like stuff that is not polyfillable or is not like transformed by Bubble. In ideal situation, one of the cool projects to work on is to add browser tests and to check if we actually work on browser and like prevent some bugs, because right now we use it only not as a test target. We need to drop test support before 3.7. I think it's already like kind of almost like 2 years since it's released, and it's not a breaking version. So we need it because we want to use recursive types and in our typings. Otherwise, we Flow supported recursive types, and for current typings, current DTS files, we use any in a bunch of places, which is not ideal. And we kind of losing type safety for our internal code base compared to flow. So, but if somebody if big group of users cannot update to TypeScript 3.7, we can try to figure out some alternative paths, but by default we should try with updating to 3.7 paths. It's like break and release, so technically we can do that. And we also can experience some break and change just to TypeScript conversion. So meaning like we should try to minimize them, but we should basically drop like workarounds and some stuff in our DTS files. So I think some of these breaking changes would be positive in a sense. Yeah, so any question or suggestion for plan breaking changes?
Sounds good.
Okay, so also some people suggested a couple of additional goals, converting TSU to Jest and provide better typings in TypeScript. So since we try to minimize scope to absolute minimum, converting to Jest is not breaking change. So we can do it after 6.0.0 release. We still plan to use Jest because like Graphql data loader and other projects use Jest. So I think like we should have like the same technical stack. Not sure if we will able, like one thing to research, if we would be able to run Jest on the Dino, to run our test on Dino. I'm not sure.
Do we have issues that we can, like, I can investigate that really quick, but it will be great if we had some place to know that we can assign that we are working on it instead of.
So I think like right now makes sense to convert to Dino, and because like Jest conversion is nice to have, but Dino support is mandatory. So let's first convert to Dino, and then figure out open issue about. By the way, you can open an issue about Jest conversion. Especially since you volunteered to work on it.
Yeah, I'm just extremely familiar with it, so why not?
Yeah, so some basic motivation to put it top of the issue, because like other projects using Jest, and because inline snapshots, I don't think we should use as reference implementation. I don't think we should use external snapshots. Yeah, but inline snapshot sometimes it's quality of life improvement, not to manually edit stuff. So for me, it's like two big reasons. Developer productivity unification with the rest of projects. So it can be done like after 16.0.0, plus we will have that Dino release and tested. So, and second point about experimenting with providing better typing, I think it will prolong conversion significantly. So it will prolong like 16.0.0 release like 4 months, because we need like a feedback to be sure that our changes is actually what community wants. And also there is a big risk that we will have something that we didn't figure out how to do properly, and it will break something unexpectedly. So idea is to work on it, but after 16.0.0 as like experimental branch, and it's actually in the steps. So about steps, what to do. So I'm started, like first step is all the steps is not done yet. So it was some preparation work before that. And right now, yeah, but the steps are starting from now, basically, as stuff that is not done. And first thing is we need to branch out 15xx release and do the last plan release, last feature release in a line. Basically, because I forget to add like some necessary stuff for deprecation of arguments and input fields. And because we already released it in previous release, so it's like kind of not even a feature release, it's more like urgent fix of functionalities that we released previously, because people will start using deprecation of args and fields, and we need to fix it because we already released it. So basically, it's like last thing for feature freeze. When switch master to main and update script CIs. I think I have like admin rights and it's easier for me to test. So I will just run git grep master and change it to main. One big thing is to switch all PRs to main. I have this admin rights, so I can switch them. I think like right now we have 50 of them. So next thing, for some time I worked on 16xx. By the way, you can interrupt at any point if you have idea or suggestion. So for some time I worked on 16xx branch already, and it's have some how to see commit history. Yeah, so it's have some commits in it. I think like around like 20 commits. Basically, remove deprecated stuff and everything discussed in breaking change. So Sahid, he based his test conversion PR on top of it. So move commits there to main. It's pretty technical because our current changelog generating script is based on PRs. So I cannot just move commits. I need to create PRs for them. But at the same time, PRs is good because people can discuss changes there. If we like break something, people have at least a place to ask questions about this particular change. Remove last few polyfills. So right now we have like object enters and object values. It's mostly like a flow issue, pretty like complex flow issue. I don't think it's a lot of work, but it's like mainly figure out how to make it work with flow. It's related to, yeah, I need to edit. It's like two step number 4. So idea is to have 16.0.0 alpha 1 with all breaking changes, but without TypeScript conversion. So if some users have like problems, we can at least like triage it and bisect it and figure out is it like breaking changes caused it or TS conversion. Plus, I want to prolong flow typing as much as possible, because if we still not sure if we want to support it in the future, So like by doing as much as possible changes to source code in flow, point changes, we can have like more recent flow typings. Yeah, might open an issue about flow typings. So if you use flow typing in Coursera, or if Guild using flow typings and you need them, please comment on the issue. But basically, we'll have, in theory, we'll have like for 16.0.0, we'll basically still have flow typings from Alpha 1 release, because ESM and Dena support is not related to typings. So yeah, Sahid work on conversion PR, and big shout out to him for doing that work. Basically, problem here is like it's big PR. So to realistically review it and to have like a good history of why this particular change was made, ask Sahid to break it into a bunch of small commits. So if you want to review it, it's like pretty easy. Not only people on the call, but maybe somebody watching it in the recordings. So current step on this stage is to review this PR. I'm personally like I'm TypeScript user, but I'm not like I think I know Flow better than TypeScript, so definitely appreciate like some second pair of eyes on this PR. But idea that every commit is so easily reviewable. So this commit is switch for syntax for maybe into like our utility maybe type. So and all the rest of commits like that, so they're easy reviewable. And I think for me,
Is something blocking Sahid to finish what it's doing? What is the, other than other pair of eyes, what else is missing to close?
yes. So yeah, by the way, like Sahid, maybe you comment how we can help you.
Currently, I am just like this week, last few weeks, I didn't get much time to like work on it. That's why I didn't push main changes. But I think the thing is left is just adding arguments to functions, and then we are deleting, and then there are like a few more small fixes. Like when we compared our flow, like we ran the flow tool to have like in a new branch we ran a flow tool to compare what we were doing manually with the flow branch, and it was quite close. We just like I found like 5 errors so far with the I just found 5 errors, and I just need to fix those. And after that, the issues are like I think more TypeScript related than like flow syntax, and I would need help on like how to convert those specific issues.
Perfect.
Yeah, so basically like a goal is to why it's not parallelizable at this point, because it should be reviewable, and huge syntax conversion done by like people in parallel, it's hard to review basically. That's why right now, but idea is since I think Sahid already by lines or by changes, he already did like 80-90% of the work. So idea at this point, rebase and merge. So idea is to keep his commit and merge what you have at this point. So as much as work that is done by like with step number 5, so merge it, and parallel-wise fixing TypeScript errors, because it's like way smaller PRs and they like more unique in a sense, and I don't expect it to be like thousands of lines. I expect it to be like hundreds of lines, so we can figure out. So idea after rebase and merge, we fix as much stuff as possible and disable stuff that is not working. So basically to fix CI. And like, you know, TypeScript, bubble setup, like maybe still use bubble with TypeScript, maybe just switch to TypeScript, figure out the like simplest way to start running test and CI and like pre. By the way, like Sahid managed to run Prettier. So Prettier is running and ESLint is running, but it's failing on some TypeScript specific rules.
One more thing to add, we how about like, do I need to do like the Babel thing to make the tests work on this VR, or will
No, idea is basically to do in your PR to do syntax conversion.
okay?
Like it's taken us a long time and people are willing to help.
Yeah.
So for like migrating stuff, I think like for us it's like it's good issues to ask for help, because because like it's like setup, it's not Graphql Js specific, it's basically like basic TypeScript setup. So I think we can figure it out. One issue, maybe we'll have issues. Maybe it will make sense to still use Bubble, because Istanbul, like our code coverage and stuff, because we're not switching to Java immediately. So yeah. So fix as much possible stuff and disable stuff that is not fixable. And next step is to mark as much as like all TypeScript errors as ignore. And so when you basically PRs on this stage, like we expect, we ask people to help. And so ideally TC will work fully, and you just like remove ignore and fix error. So I think it can be parallelized. We'll see if it's how it will work, but the idea that at this point, like people can do this stuff in parallel, and we will clearly see the number of errors. I still expect it to be like maybe hundreds, and some of them are connected to each other, but I think like some of them would be hard and require a person who knows TypeScript very well. So yeah, we can ask for help at this point. And next step is the same thing with ESLint, but based on the rules. So like somebody open a PR to enable one particular TypeScript specific ESLint rule and fix all of them, like warning or disable some of them if he fix it partly. So after we sure it's like, and by the way, at this point, probably I need to write. So at this point, we fix all low-hanging fruits, And if we still stuck with some like weird TypeScript corner cases, we will still release some alpha version. In ideal situation, it would be alpha 2, but maybe like we broke something with alpha 1, so it can be like one of alpha versions. And gather feedback. So at this point, basically, like two checkpoints. Checkpoint is to release alpha 1 with expected breaking changes, and release with like after TypeScript conversion version, and ask everybody to test it. So like Apollo guys and like bunch of libraries and Ricky from Graphql team. So basically ask everybody to try it out. Maybe not to like officially support it, but at least to say if it's like point like stuff that is major. And after that, in parallel with feedback, is to work on ESM and DNS support. And both these issues can be parallelized because ESM is NPM package and DNS doesn't use NPM. By the way, like GraphQL Js is usable through NPM package at Dina. I think like from Pico, Pika, CDN, but it's not native. So when I say like Dino support, I mean like native support. Basically, we'll have branch, Dino release or Dino branch, and we'll generate content of this branch and publish it to GitHub. So Dina users can use raw links from GitHub and their own package manager, which is also based on Git. So yeah. And when we implement ESM and Dino and write some tests for it, integration tests, yes, we release RC1, gather feedback, iterate with RCs, release 16.0.0. And at the same time, because people want to, for example, Mike wants to work on better typings for resolver. So idea is to, after release 16.0.0 release, is to create unstable branch where people can add stuff, but basically it's rebasable branch. So like we're basing on top of current main, but we release the packages. So every time we like either rebase or merge something, we release a package. Basically, like idea is to lower a bar for experimentation. So if person wants to experiment with something and it's pass basic sanity check and it makes sense to be in core, we merge it. We still require test and coverage and stuff, but the requirement on like API design and being super non-breaking is lifted. So it can be like have some breaking or some changes. And it's a way for people to experiment and release these experiments without waiting for 17.0.0 release. So basically, like what I experienced in previous releases, it's like people want to add like one last breaking change before release. So it prolong releases. So because like person understand if it's either it's added to 16.0.0 or he will need to wait like months or years before the next release. So to mitigate that idea is to create this experimental branch, but it's super unstable, no guarantees, and it's even like rebasable. So I didn't finish that section in time, so I just create the issue with stuff that I had, basically helping with reviewing and helping with next steps. I will also think about what can be done in parallel and how other people can help. So I will expand this section. So do you have like feedback or suggestion or is it sounds good?
That's good.
Yeah. So based on feedback, if by the way, if people will have a lot of feedback, I will create a document for this release plan. So like people can add suggestions and stuff, but right now it's an issue. So if somebody watching this recording and want to add like some big change, please comment in an issue and we can figure out how to incorporate that feedback. So yeah, so I think we discussed, yeah, and I can stop sharing. Yeah, so I think we discussed like current state of TypeScript conversion. So just to clarify, currently we own 15x6 and master branches on 15x6, and we have 16x6 as a branch, and we have Sahid branch on top of 16x6. So that's why it's hard right now, because I rebase 16x6 on top of master, and Sahid rebase his branch on top of 16. So that's why idea is to streamline it, and just even if it's not finished PR, just to merge it as is and have people help with migration. So it's like a main point of this plan. So like initial idea was that we can do everything in one PR, one clean PR, which is like we just apply and magically everything is TypeScript. But yeah, it's probably too much work for Sahid alone, and we don't want to prolong this release for like months. So yeah. Plus, there is a lot of people that want to help, but in context of one PR is hard. It's like you creating PRs against somebody else's PR, which is, and Sahid is also rebase it to have clean stackable commits. Yeah. So I think like if there is no other thing to discuss on this topic about TypeScript conversion or 1600, we can switch to the next one. Somebody want to discuss anything?
Yeah, what I wanted to ask about, so the workflows that we have, the one on GraphQL JS, even though is long, it has some issues in there. For example, it has some name issues, and it's all compacted in one single workflow. It's not how workflows are meant to exist, are meant to, like, sadly I've gotten experience on it for more than 5 months just working on it. So it's like kind of a pull and to understand how workflows display to the user and also how they look right now. So copying what we have in the GraphQL JS, even though it works, there are like, everything is called lint, for example. So the main title on the, I can share actually.
Yeah.
Let me get to the GraphQL. So my entire, give me a second. My entire idea was to talk about if we can create a repository that is called .github, that what it does is gives you a template for a standard workflow. So everybody can, instead of us committing to every project, we can just go and say, use this workflow, and it will just create a PR with that workflow already. So it just kind of hands off. This is what I've done in organizations, because you cannot control every repo, but what you can do is just provide a template that everybody can use. So we need to agree on a couple of stuff for that to happen. Let me just.
Yeah. First, we actually have .github repo. So in organization, in GraphQL organization, I already have it. So, and I'm like totally for this idea. If we can do it without losing,
we have a couple of problems here, and this is kind of what is blocking me right now. So I just want to clarify right now. So for example, this should not be like this. You should not be triggering push and pull requests in the same PR. This is, I'm just open the last PR that I found, right? This is part of the things that you, Ivan, was asking me to do. And this is exactly what I wasn't doing it.
Okay, I know.
So this is yeah. So this is like what, trying to bring the effort of dealing with this nightmare, because I had this same problem when I started, but I see it everywhere. And now I'm blocking this part in the SW API because you were asking me to do this. This is not intent that you are running twice everything.
Okay.
Because you are reacting to that event. There are ways to help to fix it, mainly not using either narrowing down what push does or narrowing down what pull request does, but not both as they are right now. This is what I was trying to exemplify. If you see at the beginning, it says lint source files, and you're running everything underneath. So this is also a problem with workflows, meaning workflows are a bit more complicated in the nuances of what it does. So I want to propose to have a single workflow as a template, and a simple one that it does the basic hooks. If you see the agenda, if we go to the agenda, I'm proposing, let's have the basic npm run test, npm or yarn run test, or lint and build if a build step is probable. And every project can just conform to that, and we just don't think about it, that main workflow. We can later on, for example, GraphQL JS has more stuff. It does more stuff. We can create a different workflow under the directory that only addresses GraphQL JS particularities in every project. We have different projects. So at that point, we will have always the assurance that at least the simplest main workflow is going to run, meaning lint, tests, and some build step. And every other project that we have will run everything else, right? So this is kind of the idea that I had, but I wanted to share to agree on this and make sure we can fix this. I'm happy I already have the PR ready to remove this, but I wanted to agree here.
Yeah, like, so, yeah, like, I'm totally agree with this idea. One thing that I'm worried about with reusability and split should solve more problems that it introduce. So if we can do that, I'm totally for it. So what I suggest is, since like you know about workflows more than me, I'm not like for swapping, for example, we don't have Netlify config and like Netlify deployment and its own like stuff. Plus, I'm not really familiar with Swappy. So for me, it's easier to review such stuff on GraphQL JS. And since it's also the most complex workflow that we have, like one asterisk, I think we need to have a clean goal of basic setup, basic like reusable setup for non-mono repos, because I think like Graphql have monorepo. So for monorepo, I expect like maybe it would be a little bit different.
Well, yes and no. So I do have monorepos in Coursera. We have two big monorepos where 200 engineers work on them. And the workflows can be generic as well, because every monorepo, at least in JavaScript, you have a package JSON at the top level that you can gather behavior. So you can say that test is running all the tests in the entire workspaces. So meaning the basic workflow that I'm talking about, that is the simple one, that the only thing that it does is linting, testing, and upload code cov, and pretty much it. that basic thing could be a workflow that we use everywhere. So we at least have that insurance that we know that a simple workflow is running everything. And then what I was proposing is in the particular monorepo or in particular workflows that need really specific setup, like running some Netlify through the workflow or some particular thing that I don't know right now, we can create a different workflow for that particular repo just to fix that. It's less maintenance at the end. Yeah.
Another thing, I actually thought about breaking it into files, but one thing I could not figure out how to block actions until other actions are fulfilled if they different files. It's like what stopped me from breaking it and what's motivate one huge file.
Yeah, you can wait for, yeah, we can do the waiting for different actions as well.
So what I suggest is to let's clean up what we have in Graphql Js, and until we merge TypeScript, I think we'll have 1 week for sure to make all preparations. So until then, I'm okay to merge any PR that improve workflow, and when we can propagate it to other workflows.
Right.
So yeah, because what I do personally for Express GraphQL, for example, and what I tried for a way is I open a div with workflow files, and I'm putting changes from GraphQL JS. I almost always do changes first in GraphQL JS, and if they make sense, I went through div tool. I was then ported to other repos, which is not ideal situation. And this is why I'm want to GraphQL JS to use latest stuff, and when we can move it to others. Yeah, so I'm totally, let's see how far we can go in GraphQL JS, and later figure out all other how to make it reusable. So about common repo, yeah, definitely. One
question. So if I understand this correctly, you are saying we make a repo that has multiple actions in it, and then we just pull in the action.
Well, it's not well, I don't know if that what I was proposing is action is a different thing. It will have workflows. Actions are the atom inside. So the relationship is workflows is that file, that YAML file that will tell you what are the things that you're gonna trigger, and inside are actions, right? So hopefully we're not going to create any action. What we're going to do, hopefully we don't need to create anything because it's already built. One other thing we do is we create a blueprint, a template, and this Git directory, which is a if you probably it's here.
Is there any example repo you can show?
Yeah, there are plenty. I can look for them. There's a GitHub repo here. You see? Here.
Yeah.
So this one can have more than the README, can have not only the template for issues, the template for pull requests. It can also have actions that you can use later. So you can just go to actions in a particular place and says it will show you here a template.
The issue with I don't think that .github updates after the fact you created a repo, or does it update it? So suppose I make a new repo in GraphQL org, and I had a few actions in it, and after some time I added a new action in my .github. Will it update in all the 20 repos at GraphQL JS or no?
No, that is not the behavior. No. Okay. The only thing that it does, the functionality, the only thing that it does, it provides you a template so you can create your action if you wish to. So it's not going to do it.
Okay. So it's not
Yeah, what you're asking is achieved through Renovate or Dependabot, which they will go and update the actions by themselves, versions and stuff like that. But it would not sync. It would not sync all the workflows. That is not a functionality that is done today in any place that I've seen.
Okay. Like there should be something like this, I think. Like,
well, at that point, what I end up doing at that point is creating a GitHub app. And what you do with the GitHub is a server-side component, and that doesn't have anything in the repo. It's just code deployed somewhere that it will produce changes in your repo. So it's a different, Netlify works this way. So the idea is not reinvent the wheel, it's just use what we have, right? So at that point, if what you need is to have exactly the same everywhere, which is weird but possible, you will want to have a GitHub action, a GitHub app to do that, which doesn't live in the repo. Anyways, just to close the subject, I will make sure to go to the Graphql Js workflow and at least fix this double run that we're doing with push and pull requests, because that is actually not great. It takes more time, and we're running in parallel a bunch of the same actions. Mm-hmm. And
yeah. I actually thought like it's necessary, at least like based on documentation.
It's 100% not. This is a bug that I share with you actually on the other side. This is actually not necessary.
Ah, okay. That's why I was confused. So
yeah. I think
when
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, basically two scenarios. So we merge most of the stuff through PRs, like everything except release commits. So commits that update like package JSON.
Yeah.
So it's done manually right now. So one thing I'm worried about, that action should trigger on both.
Right.
So on direct commits. So that's why we cannot write pull requests. So initially,
I understand what you say, and it's not how it works. That's why I want to show you. So I can't, this is one repository, this is one action actually that it doesn't matter what the code is. I'm just going to show you the workflow. So you can see that you don't have to worry about that. So this one runs on pull request, right?
Yeah.
That one that I show you. There's a validation on master that runs only on master here, right?
Yeah, but we want to run the same thing.
Correct.
Both.
Correct. I agree. So just showing you things. So you can, I'm going to show you one. I'm trying to look for it. So let me see. Alhamora. This is the thing that I wrote a long time ago. Let's see. I think this one has the workflow that we are looking for. Validation. So this one is only running on pull request. Let me see if I can find the one that runs on push. I think it's this one.
Yeah, to not
I want to show you an example so you see that it runs everywhere.
Okay.
So, but I cannot find it.
Yeah. Basically, so idea for me, if you're sure that it will run.
Yeah, I'm 100% sure.
Yeah, so I'm okay with merging it.
Yeah. My idea was just to have it on push every time, but the problem is in my workflows, I often do more things in one place than the other. So I do more things on pull request than on master. So I separate it apart because I don't want to do, you can do ifs inside. Oh, here. So I found one. And this is an action that invokes a Lambda AWS, that this is an open source thing. So you can see that the only validation that I have runs on push. You see?
Yeah.
All right. So if you go to actions here, you're going to see that I have it running the same one, the same workflow runs here and also runs here on master. So it runs in both places. So it runs when I land the code and also runs when there's a PR. This is a PR and it's running as well. What else? So you're going to see validation is running on that and on master. As you can see, push triggers in both places. That is because this PR, this particular workflow, it does a thing that I want to run in both places, right? Particularly the code coverage. The code coverage has to be in master, so I can compare the master with the pull request.
Push is triggered both.
Yeah.
on pushes to like your repo and pushes to somebody else fork that open PR, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it was totally my ignorance.
So what we can do is, if we want to keep, but to be clear, if we want to keep the pull request, but the pull request does all the things that might be useful, what we can do, and this is kind of the idea, what we can do is have both pull and push. But what we do is if we narrow down what pull request when push works. So push only will trigger on master, and pull request will trigger on everything else. So if we do that, this is, when I can do the PR for you, you will see it. That will narrow down the behavior. So
no, we see like at the moment we don't have any like different flows. One thing like in future at some point I like to switch to what's called commit conventions that automatically generate changelog, and for that at that point it's not like in scope of right now of TypeScript conversion and stuff, but afterwards to make it like friendly, we will need to run some linter on PRs to lint commit messages, and we can obviously cannot run it on master because we already have a bunch of commits that is not. So I expect some difference to happen in future, but like we'll deal with it in future. So
okay. Yeah, so yeah, I'm all for trying to simplify what we have right now so we can copy paste more at least, and we don't have to duplicate that much. I will try to get to a point that we can use it. Something that you will see that happens is when someone like that is not a collaborator is pushing, like I'm just someone pushing code to a branch, it will not run a new workflow unless the workflow is a master. So what it will happen right now is if someone tries to add a workflow in their PR, you're gonna see it that it doesn't run.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
So that is
I cover it. So my only requirement is that if you're not 100% sure in something, please test it like with work. Yeah. So as like action plans, until we merge Sahid PR, I'm okay with merging any like improvement to our GitHub Actions files. After we merge Sahid PR, we will break action, and so it's a bad thing to fix them and change them at the same time. But before that, I think like we still have a week, maybe more, like ideally less. Ideally like a week, but before that I'm okay. My only requirement is try to make it like small PRs, like, and if something is not obvious, like for example, like our discussion about pull and push and stuff, like please write like explanation, because one thing, not only for me, but for people who basically for blame, to have some meaningful explanation why we introduce something. And another point, I'm against, personally against adding any dependencies, third-party dependency, unless it's absolutely necessary or unless it's like widely used one. So I'm okay like with adding like Jest and like React and like stuff, but I'm like, because stuff that, for example, install packages, it can change content of node models and will even cache it.
That's fine. That's fair.
Yeah, so it's
the only thing that I can remember in my PRs that had that, it was a suggestion from Ricky. It wasn't,
Yeah.
it wasn't something that I added myself. Just trying to I don't know, because we don't have so many documentation about what we accept, what we don't, and how we are going to do this. It's sometimes I'm just trying to navigate, like anyone who comes from the organization and says, oh, we use this.
Like Graphql and LSP, like monorepos that Ricky maintains, it's development only. So like obviously nobody like Graphql is not production tools. It's like development tools, and like other plugins is the same. GraphQL Js is production stuff. So it's used by a bunch of like Airbnb using it, and it's used by like entire Power stack is built on
everybody. No, I agree. 100%. I don't think there's a disagreement here.
So, and since we want to unify dependencies, yeah. So it's not absolute. Like I'm like, so if it's like, if it save us 6 lines and GitHub finally introduced a way to reuse parts of workflows, I'm okay with code duplication. So, by the way, GraphQL JS is zero dependency, and it requires some work, but at the same time, it has a bunch of benefits. For example, we can support like browser and Node and Dino, and don't care about bundlers or other like solutions. So for workflows, plus we don't depend on some like one person projects when a person like disappear or not update or have security problems in it. So yeah, it's like my only and by the way, if you feel like some dependency is necessary or like makes sense, just comment why. So like it's not 100% or not absolute in that. Yeah, so clarify next steps. So definitely it would be great when you fix stuff and improve. By the way, about improvement, if you figure out how to split them into separate things, I'm like totally for it.
Right.
And also about actions, I think like I wrote with shell script for checking, because people constantly either commit pairs with idea like directory or like some other IDE directory, or they try to add it into git ignore, and it's endless story. If you start adding IDEs, you constantly continue to add them. So I wrote the script, and I think it actually makes sense as action.
Yeah, I read it. I know what you're talking about. It could be an action. It's not hard to write them. I have many already that I maintain by myself for Coursera. So the problem with that is that when it's Bash, the problem that you have is Bash is impossible to test, really. Like Bash is not a language that you can test. There's no framework to test that. So if we create that in a separate action, the problem that we're going to land is if we use the same code, is we're going to have to come up with a testing framework to test Bash, which is not the most comfortable. So I tend to write everything in TypeScript, even if it's a workaround, so I can test it. So I can have a TypeScript, so I can use that. Just if you see my use Herald action that you saw there, that is what we use in monorepos for big organizations in private. That thing has 100% tests coverage. So I trust my own implementation, because I tested with the Bash script. If we move it to an action, the only problem that we're going to have is we're going to have to translate it to a language that we can actually test. That is the only thing that I can think of.
Entire content is pretty simple.
Sure.
So it's like let's my personal rule of thumb: if it's improvement, if it's strictly improvement, it's like it's like makes sense to merge it. So we don't have tests for this action right now. And if we separate it, we'll also not have tests for it, so we don't lose anything. And I'm definitely open to, if somebody wants to rewrite it, I'm also open. One thing to keep in mind, it's like, it's not hard requirement. It's like, for me, stuff that works on PRs, if it's broken, it's nothing bad happened. A person like person will ask a question why it's broken, how I can fix it, and I can fix it. And since we vendor it, so we don't expect a lot of people to use it. So one thing I'm like for most part, we should focus on our own use cases. So like GraphQL Foundation is created to solve GraphQL cases. So if we can open source or extract something to be usable by people at the same time, it's okay. If not, we don't care if it's so our own problem. So like with particular action, like let's don't think about it as or our workflows. Let's not think about it as like solution for JavaScript ecosystem or like GitHub action ecosystem, but solution for like foundation. So we mostly care about developer productivity and developer experience to our own repos.
Yeah. All right. So regarding that, the only thing that I can propose is I think I've seen something similar out there in actions. So I can find an action, or if we want to reuse it, I can create an action that does that particular thing that you want. We are going to end up, if I found it outside, we're going to have to use someone else's action, not.
Yeah, so if
it's not going to be done by a company, it's probably the good part about actions is that the actions get published in the marketplace, and those are releases. So you can trust that version if you understand what it's doing.
Yeah, like one thing, we, for example, dependent on, for a long time, it was dependent on iter-o library by Lee. So like we can trust Lee. But at the same time, Lee don't have enough time to update it. So he updated once a year. So if something is happened, we basically stack zero. So for me, it's a factor. If something can be done in like tens of lines, it makes sense. And big changes is not expected. So we don't expect it change frequently. So vendor it is actually a solution. For example, like changelog generation. I wrote it like in a day. And it's worked good. It's like optimized to our use case, our setup. And I don't change it like often. I change it only if we need something, and it's easier when to contribute to other changelog solutions. So I personally like as a strategy, if something is small and changes is not expected, we can vendor it. But if it's like some company, as you said, and it's like it's look maintained, so it's like people answering issue and merging PRs, we can use it. I don't have problem using something which is like from source that we can trust and it's updatable, because sometimes security issue can be introduced just because person didn't update his dependencies.
I see. All right. I think that is clear. And okay. I don't know if we have anything else in the meeting.
Yeah, I actually added one topic. Yeah, about next steps. because it's always good to define. So I try to contribute as much as possible fixes before we match the hit PR. If you want to do something afterwards, we can choose any other repo as a test ground. Like, for example, we can use or create branch, or use, like, for example, data loader as test ground. One thing I would say, since I think, like, yeah, like for graphical repo, we need to speak with Ricky, see how it's fit his use case. So, like, I would say minimum valuable thing would be cleaning up Graphql Js workflows. Next step is to have, like, common or reusable stuff for non-mono repo. And if we can fit, like, mono repo and graphical at the same time, it's like ideal use case. So let's proceed that way, fix Graphql Js and, like, generalize, and then figure out how to integrate it and with graphical.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds good. I can talk to Rick as well. I've been talking to him lately, so I can talk to him about this idea of merging workflows and trying to have the minimal. So don't worry about it. All right. I have to drop off, but thank you. And I will follow up with all the things that we have talked about.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.